Hi everyone. My name is Caoimh Gallagher, and I'm in my fourth and final year of applied languages at UL. So my research is concerned with the linguistic styles of Deputy Mary Lou McDonald throughout her political career. So I carried out this research under the supervision of Dr. Maria Reeder. So I've always been interested in the areas of gender studies and politics, and I wanted to combine these interests with my knowledge that I'd acquired in linguistics throughout my course. So just a bit of background. So whilst I was researching potential topics, I came across this belief that women tend to conform to a masculine style of speaking if they're perceived to be successful in politics. So this isn't really a new concept because the former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt wrote in an article in 1928 entitled Women Must Learn to Play the Game as Men Do. So she wrote, if women believe they have a right and duty in political life today, they must learn to talk the language of men. They must not only master the phraseology, but also understand the machinery which men have built up through years of practical experience. So basically, she said that if women are to be perceived successful, they must learn how to acquire the same speaking style or linguistic style that men have. And various analysis have been carried out into this perception in relation to potential or leaders or existing leaders in politics, such as Hillary Clinton, Sarah Palin, Angela Merkel, and Australia's Julia Gillard. And it's more often than not been proven that females alter their linguistic style as they grow more powerful or gain more influence in politics. So I wanted to test this hypothesis in relation to an Irish female politician, and at the time I proposed doing this research was in March 2020. So Mary Lou McDonald was very prevalent in the media at this time. And a lot of the coverage that she has received throughout her political career has really focused on the fact that she's a woman and her status as a female rather than her potential to be a good politician or a good leader. So there's an article here that was written in the Times London entitled Shopaholic Trinity Girl is Face of New Sinn Féin. And Mary Lou McDonald is declared as having a great passion for shopping. And in addition, the author worries that juggling the demands of a young family with the weekly commute to Brussels and Strasbourg is likely to be too demanding for McDonald to sustain as a career. So another article that was written in the Irish Times focuses on the fact that you can see McDonald has always been the type of attractive woman who gets taken aside by a lot of men. So various women in Irish politics have admitted, such as Emily O'Reilly here in 2020, she admitted that there's a savagery to the abuse that women get and it has turned women off politics. And Lisa Chambers, the abuse for female politicians is a lot more personalised. It's a lot more based on the tone of your voice, the colour of your hair, how you're dressed. So I wanted to research this idea and see what the repercussions of this sexist perception in the media, how it affects women and the way they speak in politics. So this here was an analysis that was conducted into the linguistic styles of Hillary Clinton, and ultimately Jennifer Jones concluded that the prototypical political leader looks, acts and talks like a man, and a woman simply does not fit into this prototype. And in turn, this suggests that women must talk like men if they are to be perceived as successful, capable leaders. So the two broad aims of my project were to determine any changes in the prevalence of feminine and masculine linguistic markers in Deputy McDonald's speech in each of the respective time periods under review from 2012 to 2020 through the framework of corpus linguistics, and also to gain a general understanding of the types of tokens that are being used by Deputy McDonald in each of the corpora under review and what they may potentially say about her linguistic styles. So the first step was collecting data. So I decided to use 20 parliamentary transcripts that I downloaded from the official report to form the basis of 5 systematic corpora. However, when I downloaded these transcriptions, they obviously hadn't been transcribed with the linguist in mind. So there were many paralinguistic features that had been omitted, such as false starts, repetitions, hesitations, fillers, hedges, pauses, and so on. And many of these were vital in determining the linguistic style of Deputy McDonald. So I transcribed what I had downloaded, watching footage of the debate or the question time and so on, using the Jefferson transcription system. So I was able to add in what had been omitted. And I built 5 corpora using Sketch Engine, and then analysed these corpora using corpus linguistic analysis. So corpora are large principal databases of naturally occurring language. So using Sketch Engine, I was able to create 5 individual corpora with an extra focus on the year 2020, because McDonald would have been more prevalent in the media, or yeah, her speeches would have been a lot more prevalent then. So in total, I transcribed 13,561 words and investigated the linguistic styles of McDonald from 2012 to 2020. So it was a mixed method approach, and drawing on studies in the field of language and gender, I investigated how feminine or how masculine her linguistic styles were in each of the corpora. So this is just a brief overview of the corpora. So there are 5, and there's an extra focus on 2020. So I conducted initial readings and I used certain tools just so my findings weren't biased, but for the most part I based them off of these 2 catalogues here. So these were based on studies that have proven that on average and in general that women use lexical hedges, intensifiers and tentative words more often than men, while men on average and in general use silent pauses, prepositions and anger words more often than women. So basically my analysis was concerned with calculating the prevalence of each of the aforementioned tokens in the corpora. So for example, I would study the frequency lists of each corpora and see how many lexical hedges appeared, how many intensifiers, and so on. So just in relation to my findings, so on conducting my initial readings, I found that social references such as person, woman, girl, survivor, and child appear in the earlier corpora. And this was very much in accord with a recent study conducted by Hargrave and Langingen, which proved that female politicians in the House of Commons tend to orientate policy discussions to consider the effects on specific groups or individuals in society, such as single mothers, rural families, or disabled individuals. And then in 2020, more abstract terms appeared, which were suggestive of masculine style that relate to a less specific, high, more abstract group or issue, such as citizen, representative, everybody, and someone. So this really coincided with the fact that men use language to report, while women generally use language for rapport or to build relationships. So in the later corpora, McDonald's language was a lot more masculine than it was in 2012, 2013. So in the earlier corpora, they also contained a number of emotion words such as achievement, disappointment, and cruelty, which are more indicative of a female style of speaking, while more references to policy issues with the use of tokens such as case, protest, mandate, opposition, party, vote, and housing appeared in 2020. So the aspects of women's language under review decreased by a total of 0.01% over the 8-year period, while the aspects of men's language remained constant at 0.2% of her tokens over the course of the 8 years. Now that may seem like a very small percentage, but given the fact that the tokens that I analysed generally don't comprise a huge amount of our speech, this was quite significant. So her language did grow less feminine as her role in politics increased. So this was my primary conclusion. I also wanted to test the suitability of the official report as a corpus linguistic resource, and I found that it had the potential to be a corpus linguistic resource if it was transcribed. So in relation to further research, I think the creation of a systematic Dáil Éireann corpus would be quite interesting for those interested in the areas of political discourse. So this could be used to analyse language that is used within the Dáil. So various comparisons could be made amongst female TDs, amongst male and female TDs, or amongst government ministers and backbenchers potentially, and so on. So the main conclusion that I've drawn from my research is that power speaks with a male voice. Yep, so that's